The morning alarm pierced through Sarah Chen's cramped dormitory room like a plasma cutter through steel. She groaned and rolled over, her dark hair spilling across the pillow as she tried to ignore the persistent beeping. Outside her tiny window, the twin suns of Kepler 442b cast their familiar orange glow across the sprawling campus of the Galactic Defense Academy. Sarah sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Another day of being the weird human girl in a school full of aliens who looked at her like she was some kind of dangerous animal. She glanced at her reflection in the small mirror mounted on the wall. Plain face, tired brown eyes, nothing special. Certainly nothing that screamed legendary warrior or galactic savior. If only they knew the truth. The shower was ice cold again. The Academy's systems always seemed to malfunction in the human dormitory wing, though Sarah suspected it wasn't entirely accidental. She dressed quickly in her standard-issue uniform, the dark blue fabric hanging loose on her small frame. The designers had clearly made it for the average Zentari student, who stood nearly 7 feet tall with broad shoulders. On Sarah, it looked like she was wearing her older brother's clothes. The cafeteria buzzed with dozens of different languages and the clicking, chirping, and rumbling of various alien species. Sarah grabbed a tray and moved through the line, selecting foods that wouldn't make her sick. Human digestive systems were notoriously sensitive compared to most galactic species, another mark against her in the eyes of her classmates. She found an empty table in the corner and sat down, pulling out her datapad to review the day's assignments. Advanced combat theory, interspecies diplomacy, and tactical engineering. All subjects where her human perspective was either dismissed or mocked. Well, well, look what crawled out of the primitive wing. Sarah looked up to see Zektar approaching her table. The Corvan stood 8 feet tall, his blue-scaled skin gleaming under the cafeteria lights. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their military prowess and aggressive nature. Behind him followed his usual crew of admirers, a mix of species united by their shared disdain for humans. "Morning, Zektar," Sarah said quietly, not looking up from her pad. "Did you hear the news, little human?" Zektar's voice carried across the nearby tables, drawing attention. The Vorthan Empire just conquered another 3 systems. Wiped out the defenders without breaking a sweat. Sarah's hand tightened slightly on her datapad, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that." Zektar laughed, a harsh sound that made several other students turn to watch. "Sorry? Your entire species should be grateful. At least when the Vorthons come for Earth, it'll be quick. Not like you humans could put up much of a fight anyway." The conversations around them had died down. Sarah could feel dozens of eyes watching her, waiting to see how the weak human would respond to the insult. She took a slow breath and looked up at Zektar. "You might be surprised," she said simply. "Surprised?" Zektar's crest flared with amusement. "By what? Your species' amazing ability to die quickly?" Sarah stood up, barely reaching Zektar's chest even at her full height. The Corvan towered over her, his muscled frame making her look like a child by comparison, but something in her eyes made him take a half-step back. "By our amazing ability to survive," she said, her voice carrying despite its softness. "We've been doing it for a very long time." Before Zektar could respond, Sarah picked up her tray and walked away. The cafeteria remained silent for a long moment before conversations gradually resumed. She didn't see the thoughtful expression on Professor Veklos's face as the elderly Thessian observed the exchange from across the room. The first class of the day was Advanced Combat Theory with Commander Rotek, a former hegemony war hero whose teaching style consisted mainly of describing how various species' military tactics were inferior to hegemony doctrine. Sarah slipped into her usual seat in the back row as the commander began his lecture. "Today we examine the recent Vorthan campaigns. Commander Rotek announced, his forearms gesturing at the holographic display. Notice their efficient deployment of shock troops and their systematic destruction of enemy command structures. The display showed orbital bombardments reducing cities to ash, followed by ground forces mopping up any survivors. Sarah watched the tactical readouts with professional interest, noting weak points in the Vorthon formation that apparently no one else had spotted. The key to Vorthon's success, the commander continued, is their understanding that warfare is about overwhelming force applied precisely. They don't waste time with prolonged conflicts or attempts at negotiation. A Thessian student raised her hand. What about the human Vorthon conflicts from 50 years ago? Didn't the humans manage to hold them off for almost 2 years? Commander Rotek's expression soured. An anomaly. The humans got lucky with some asteroid field tactics and benefited from Vorthon overconfidence. When the Vorthons adapted their strategy, human resistance collapsed within months. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Let them believe their version of events. The truth was classified so far above their clearance levels that most of the Academy's faculty didn't even know it existed. The lecture continued with analysis of various battle formations and weapon deployments. Sarah found herself mentally correcting the tactical assessments, but kept her observations to herself. No point in drawing attention. After class, she was gathering her materials when she noticed another student approaching. Kira was a Thessian, one of the few aliens at the Academy who had ever shown Sarah any kindness. Her species was known for their intellectual achievements rather than military might, which made her an outsider in her own way. That was quite a response to Zektar this morning, Kira said quietly. Sarah shrugged. Just telling the truth. About humans surviving? I've read about your species' history, the wars, the disasters, the near extinctions. It's remarkable that you're still around. We're stubborn like that. Kira smiled, her large eyes crinkling at the corners. I think it's more than stubbornness. There's something about humans that the other species don't understand. Something that makes you dangerous in ways they can't quantify. Sarah looked at her carefully. What do you mean? I've been researching human military history for a project. The things your species has accomplished. The battles you've won against impossible odds. It doesn't make sense according to standard tactical doctrine. Maybe we're just lucky. No, Kira said firmly. Luck doesn't account for the patterns I'm seeing. There's something else. Something that your species does differently. Before Sarah could respond, the chime for the next class period sounded. Kira gathered her materials and headed for the door, but paused to look back. Be careful, Sarah. I think there are people here who suspect you're more than you appear to be. The rest of the day passed uneventfully. Sarah attended her classes, submitted her assignments, and endured the usual mixture of condescension and outright hostility from her classmates. But Kira's words stuck with her. If a Thessian had picked up on something unusual, how long before others did the same? That evening, she made her way to the Academy's communication center. The building was nearly empty at this hour, most students having returned to their dormitories or social activities. Sarah approached one of the secure terminals and inserted her authorization code. The screen flickered to life, showing a simple text interface. To anyone watching, it would look like she was composing a message to family back on Earth. In reality, she was accessing one of the most classified communication networks in known space. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, typing what appeared to be a casual letter home. Hi, Mom. Hope you're doing well. Classes are going fine, though some of my classmates still think humans are primitive. Had an interesting conversation today about our family's military history. Someone seems to be asking questions about the old wars. Should I be concerned? Love, Sarah. She sent the message and waited. Within minutes, a reply appeared. Sweetheart, so good to hear from you. Don't worry about curious classmates. Your great-grandfather's war stories are fascinating to everyone. Just remember what we taught you about keeping family secrets. We're proud of you no matter what. If you need anything, call your Uncle Mike. Love, Mom. Sarah deleted both messages and logged out of the system. The coded reply was clear. Maintain your cover, but be prepared to contact your handler if necessary. Uncle Mike was Admiral Michael Harrison, one of only a dozen people in the galaxy who knew the truth about humanity's real capabilities. She walked back to her dormitory through the quiet campus, thinking about the message. The Galactic Defense Academy was supposed to be neutral territory, a place where all species could learn together and build mutual understanding. But Sarah knew better. She was here for a reason, and it wasn't to study military theory. Back in her room, she locked the door and activated a small device hidden in her desk drawer. The privacy shield hummed to life, creating a dead zone that would defeat any listening devices or surveillance equipment. Only then did she allow herself to relax. Sarah sat on her narrow bed and opened a hidden compartment in her footlocker. Inside was a single data crystal, no bigger than her thumbnail. She'd never activated it, but she knew what it contained: her real mission parameters, her true identity, and access codes to enough military hardware to level a small moon. For now, it would stay hidden. She was Sarah Chen, awkward human student, trying her best to fit in at an academy full of superior alien species. But across the galaxy, in the dark corners where intelligence operatives gathered and military planners made their secret calculations, she was known by a different name entirely. The Vorthons were coming. Everyone knew it was just a matter of time before their expansion reached the core systems, including Earth. The other species saw humanity as a weak link, a primitive world that would fall quickly when the invasion came. They had no idea that Earth had been preparing for this moment for over 50 years. They didn't know about the hidden shipyards, the classified weapons systems, or the special operations teams scattered throughout the galaxy. Most importantly, they didn't know about the sleeper agents placed in key positions across known space. Sarah pulled out her regular data pad and began reviewing her homework for the next day. Tomorrow would bring more classes, more condescension, and more opportunities to gather intelligence while maintaining her cover as a struggling student. She thought about Zektar's taunts in the cafeteria. If only he knew that the weak human he'd been mocking had personally planned 3 of the most successful covert operations in recent galactic history. Her tactical recommendations had saved entire star systems, though no one would ever know her real contribution. A soft chime from her door indicated someone was requesting entry. Sarah quickly secured the privacy device and opened the door to find Kira standing in the hallway, looking nervous. "I'm sorry to bother you so late," Kira said, "but I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation earlier." Sarah stepped aside to let her in. "What's on your mind?" Kira entered the small room and looked around nervously. "Can anyone overhear us?" "No," Sarah said, which was true enough with the privacy shield active. "What's this about?" "I've been doing more research into human military history," Kira said, sitting on the desk chair, "specifically about something called the Terra Protocol." Sarah's blood turned to ice, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm not familiar with that term. I found references to it buried in some old intelligence reports, something about a contingency plan developed after the first Vorthon-human conflicts. But all the details are classified above my access level." "Maybe it's classified for good reason," Sarah said carefully. Kira leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Sarah, I think your species is hiding something. Something big. The mathematical models don't work. There's no way humans should have survived as long as you have given your apparent technological limitations." "What are you suggesting?" "I think humans are deliberately appearing weaker than you really are. I think it's all an act." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options. Kira was getting too close to the truth. But she was also potentially valuable. The Thessians were known for their analytical abilities and their commitment to academic truth over political convenience. "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah asked finally. "Because I think something big is coming. The Vorthon expansion, the military buildup in the outer systems, the increased security around Earth. It all points to a major conflict in the near future. And I think when it comes, a lot of people are going to be surprised by what humans are actually capable of." Sarah looked at the young Thessian for a long moment. In the distance, she could hear the sounds of other students laughing and talking in their rooms, oblivious to the conversation that was reshaping the future of galactic politics. "Hypothetically speaking," Sarah said slowly, "if humans were more capable than they appeared, what would you do with that information?" "I'd want to be on your side when the truth comes out," Kira said without hesitation. Sarah nodded slowly. The game was changing, and perhaps it was time to start building some allies. But first, she needed to contact Uncle Mike and let him know that their careful deception might be starting to unravel. Outside her window, the twin suns had set, leaving the campus bathed in the soft glow of artificial lighting. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, Vorthon fleets were moving toward the core systems, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea what was waiting for them. 3 weeks had passed since Kira's late-night visit, and the atmosphere at the Galactic Defense Academy had grown increasingly tense. News from the Outer Rim told of Vorthon fleets moving with unprecedented coordination, their advance seemingly unstoppable. Entire star systems had gone dark, their last transmissions speaking of massive ships emerging from hyperspace with weapons that could crack planets. Sarah sat in the back of her interspecies relations class, half listening to Professor Velthar drone on about diplomatic protocols, while her mind processed the latest intelligence reports she'd received through encrypted channels. The situation was deteriorating faster than anyone had anticipated, even those with access to humanity's most classified projections. "Miss Chen," Professor Velthar's voice cut through her thoughts, "perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts on the current crisis?" Sarah looked up to find the entire class staring at her. The Nalaxian professor's tentacles twitched with what might have been amusement or irritation. "I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?" "I asked what role you believe Earth should play in the coming conflict, given humanity's limited resources." The way he said it made it clear he expected her to acknowledge humanity's weakness. Around the classroom, students leaned forward with interest. Zektar, in particular, wore a smug expression, clearly expecting her to be humiliated. Sarah considered her words carefully. "I think everyone might be surprised by what humans can contribute when they're properly motivated." "Motivated?" Zektar spoke up without permission. "What could possibly motivate a species that can barely defend a single star system?" "Survival," Sarah said simply. "It's amazing what any species can accomplish when their backs are against the wall." Professor Velthar's tentacles writhed thoughtfully. "An interesting perspective. But surely you must acknowledge that motivation means nothing without the technological and military capabilities to act upon it." "Sun Tzu wrote that all warfare is based on deception," Sarah replied. "Sometimes what appears to be weakness is actually strength, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself." "Sun Tzu?" Kira asked from her seat near the front. "Is that a human military theorist?" "Ancient Chinese general and philosopher. He understood that the best victory is one where your enemy defeats themselves because they never saw the real threat coming." The class fell silent. Even Professor Velthar seemed taken aback by the sophistication of the concept. Most galactic military doctrine focused on displays of overwhelming force, not subtle misdirection. Zektar's crest flared with derision. "Typical human philosophy? Trying to make weakness sound like a strategy?" "Is it weakness?" Sarah asked quietly. Or is it that you're not looking at the right data? Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the academy. The emergency lighting activated, bathing the classroom in red as automated announcements echoed through the halls. All students report to designated emergency stations. This is not a drill. Professor Velthar's expression turned grim. Everyone remain calm and proceed to the Central Assembly Hall in an orderly fashion. As students began filing out, Sarah felt a hand on her arm. Kira leaned close and whispered, "Whatever's happening, I think it's what you've been waiting for." The Central Assembly Hall was packed with nearly 3,000 students and faculty from across the galaxy. The massive holographic display at the front of the room showed a tactical map of known space, with red markers indicating Vorthan fleet positions. The enemy had advanced much further than the public reports had indicated. Admiral Kextara, the Academy's commanding officer, stepped up to the podium. The veteran warrior's scarred face spoke of decades of combat experience, and her presence commanded immediate silence. "Students and faculty of the Galactic Defense Academy," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's audio systems. "I have just received confirmation that Vorthan forces have begun their final push toward the core systems. Our long-range sensors indicate massive fleet movements aimed at 12 major worlds, including the homeworlds of 6 Council species. The display updated to show projected invasion routes. Earth appeared on the list, a small blue dot surrounded by ominous red arrows. The Galactic Council has activated Emergency Protocol 7. All military academies are hereby converted to active duty status. Graduating students will be immediately commissioned and assigned to defensive fleets. Underclassmen will be evacuated to secure facilities in the inner systems." A wave of nervous murmurs swept through the assembly. Sarah noticed that several students were looking toward the human section with expressions ranging from pity to contempt. Everyone assumed Earth would fall quickly, making the humans present little more than refugees. "However," Admiral Kexatara continued, "I have also received some unusual orders regarding our human students." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This wasn't part of any scenario they'd trained for. "Effective immediately, all human personnel are to report to Secure Conference Room Alpha. This includes students, faculty, and support staff." The murmurs grew louder. Secure Conference Room Alpha was restricted to the highest clearance levels. No student had ever been inside, regardless of species. "All other personnel will proceed with standard evacuation protocols." Dismissed. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah found herself moving against the flow toward the secure section of the academy. Around her, the dozen other humans present looked confused and worried. Only Sarah knew that something much larger than a student evacuation was about to unfold. The secure conference room was unlike anything the other humans had ever seen. The walls were lined with quantum encryption arrays, and the central holo table was military-grade hardware typically found only on capital ships. But what drew everyone's attention was the figure standing at the head of the table. Admiral Michael Harrison wore the dress uniform of Earth's Deep Space Command, an organization that most of the galaxy believed was nothing more than a small exploration service. His weathered face and numerous military decorations told a different story. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, as the last person entered and the doors sealed behind them, "it's time you learned the truth about why you're really here." Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the Academy's only human faculty member, stepped forward with a shocked expression. "Admiral Harrison? What are you doing here?" "My job, Beth, which is to activate Terra Protocol Omega." The phrase hit Sarah like a physical blow. Terra Protocol. Omega was the final stage of Earth's 50-year deception, the point where humanity stopped hiding and revealed exactly what they'd been building in secret. "I don't understand," said Marcus Webb, a second-year student from New Angeles. "What's Terra Protocol Omega?" Admiral Harrison activated the holotable, which immediately displayed a tactical overview that made the previous displays look like children's toys. Instead of showing a few dozen human ships scattered across their single system, it revealed a fleet presence that spanned half the galaxy. For the past 50 years, the Admiral said, humanity has been conducting the largest military deception in galactic history. While everyone believed we were a weak, single-system species struggling to keep up with galactic technology, we were actually building the most advanced fleet in known space. The display zoomed in on various sectors, revealing massive shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, camouflaged bases in empty systems, and what appeared to be an entire shadow fleet that had been operating right under the nose of galactic intelligence services. "But that's impossible," Dr. Warren whispered. "The resource requirements alone." "Earth has been strip mining uninhabited systems for decades," Admiral Harrison explained. "We've been using automated systems to build infrastructure in regions that everyone else considered too remote to be worth exploring. While the rest of the galaxy fought over habitable worlds, we claimed 10,000 empty systems that no one wanted." Sarah found her voice. "And the sleeper agents?" The Admiral's eyes met hers. "Ah, yes. I was wondering when you'd speak up, Agent Chen." The other humans turned to stare at Sarah with shock and confusion. Marcus took a step back. "Agent? Sarah, what's he talking about?" Admiral Harrison smiled grimly. "Meet Special Agent Sarah Chen of Earth Intelligence Division. She's been collecting data on Galactic Defense Force capabilities for the past 2 years. Her mission assessment reports have been instrumental in our strategic planning." "You're a spy?" Dr. Warren asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm a soldier," Sarah replied quietly. "Same as everyone else in this room is about to become." Admiral Harrison nodded. "Terra Protocol Omega activates every human in the galaxy as part of our intelligence and resistance network. The students and faculty here represent some of our most valuable assets, individuals who have spent years learning how other species think, fight, and organize their defenses." The holotable shifted to show real-time positions of Vorthon fleets. Their advance looked unstoppable, but now Sarah could see additional data overlays that revealed what the enemy didn't know they were walking into. "The Vorthons are expecting to face the scattered, uncoordinated fleets of a dozen different species," the Admiral continued. "What they're actually going to encounter is a unified command structure that's been planning for this exact scenario since before most of you were born." Marcus pointed at the display. "But there are millions of them. Even with hidden fleets, how can we possibly match that kind of firepower?" "Who said anything about matching it?" Sarah spoke up, earning a nod from Admiral Harrison. "We're not going to fight them the way they expect to be fought." The Admiral activated a new display showing detailed intelligence profiles on Vorthon command structure, ship designs, and tactical doctrine. Agent Chen's reports have identified 17 critical weaknesses in Vorthon military organization. "We're not going to engage them in massive fleet battles where they have the advantage. We're going to hit them in ways they've never experienced before." "Guerrilla warfare," Dr. Warren said, understanding dawning in her eyes, "but on a galactic scale." "Exactly. While their main fleets are conquering empty worlds, our strike teams will be targeting their supply lines, communication networks, and command centers. We're going to turn their size and coordination into liabilities." The door chimed, and Admiral Kexitara entered the room. The Corvin officer's expression showed she was still processing what she'd just learned about her human students and faculty. "Admiral Harrison," she said, offering a formal salute. "I've just received confirmation from Galactic Command. Earth Defense Force has revealed itself to the Council." And their reaction? Shock, disbelief. Several species are demanding explanations for how you managed to hide such a massive military buildup. Admiral Harrison smiled. "I'm sure they are. What about our immediate situation here?" "The Academy is now under joint Earth Galactic Command. Your people are free to implement whatever protocols they deem necessary. Sarah stepped forward. Admiral, what about the other students? Zektar, Kira, the others in my classes? What about them? Some of them might be useful. Kira in particular has been asking very intelligent questions about human capabilities. She might make a valuable ally. Admiral Kextara's ears twitched with interest. You're suggesting we bring non-humans into Terra Protocol operations? The Thessians have always been neutral in galactic conflicts, Admiral Harrison said thoughtfully. And their analytical capabilities are well documented. Agent Chen, do you trust this Kira? Sarah considered the question carefully. I think she's someone who values truth over politics. And right now, the truth is that humans might be the only thing standing between the galaxy and Vorthon conquest. Very well. Admiral Kextara, please have this Kira brought to the secure conference room. Agent Chen, you'll handle the briefing. As Admiral Kextara left to retrieve Kira, Admiral Harrison turned back to the assembled humans. I know this is a lot to process. You came here thinking you were students, and now you're discovering you're part of the largest covert operation in history. But I need you to understand something. The next few weeks will determine whether free civilizations continue to exist in this galaxy. The holotable updated again, showing the projected timeline of Vorthon advance. Without intervention, they would reach Earth in 6 weeks. But now it also showed dozens of planned Earth counterstrikes that would begin in less than 72 hours. Marcus, your engineering studies make you perfect for sabotage operations. Dr. Warren, your xenobiology expertise will be crucial for understanding how different species will react to combat stress. Everyone in this room has skills that our military planners have been counting on. What about our cover identities? Asked Jennifer Kim, a third-year tactical studies student. Do we maintain them? For now, yes. The galaxy isn't ready to learn the full extent of human capabilities. We'll reveal ourselves in stages, as the tactical situation requires. The door chimed again, and Admiral Kextara returned with Kira in tow. The young Thessian looked nervous and confused, her large eyes taking in the military equipment and unfamiliar faces. Kira, Sarah said, stepping forward. Thank you for coming. Sarah, what's going on? Who are these people? Admiral Harrison gestured toward the holotable. Miss Kira, I understand you've been researching human military capabilities. Kira's eyes widened as she recognized the Admiral's uniform and rank insignia. You're Earth Military Command, but that's impossible. Earth barely has a space force. Actually, Sarah said gently, that's exactly what we wanted everyone to believe. Over the next hour, they gave Kira the same briefing the humans had received. To her credit, the Thessian absorbed the information with remarkable composure, asking detailed questions about logistics, strategy, and the implications for galactic politics. So humans have been playing a 50-year game of deception, she said finally, making everyone think you're weak while building the most powerful military force in the galaxy. That's a fair assessment, Admiral Harrison agreed. And now the Vorthans are about to discover that their easy conquest just became a nightmare. We certainly hope so. Kira was quiet for a long moment, her analytical mind processing the vast implications of what she'd learned. What do you need from me? Sarah smiled. We need you to do what you do best. Analyze, evaluate, and help us understand how other species will react when the truth starts coming out. Because this won't stay secret for long, Admiral Harrison added. Once we begin active operations, the galaxy will learn very quickly that humanity has been hiding its true capabilities. Kira nodded slowly. And when they do, everything changes. The balance of power, the political alliances, the way every species views humanity, it all shifts overnight. Which is why we need allies who understand that we're not the enemy, Sarah said. We're the ones trying to save everyone from actual conquest. The holotable chimed with an incoming priority message. Admiral Harrison activated it. revealing the grim face of Earth's supreme military commander. Admiral Harrison, Terra Protocol Omega is now fully active. All assets are in position. You have authorization to begin Phase 1 operations immediately. Understood, Command. We'll initiate from our position here. The connection ended, leaving the room in tense silence. Admiral Harrison turned to address the group. Ladies and gentlemen, the war has begun. But not the war anyone expected. Outside the academy, alert klaxons were blaring as ships began evacuating non-essential personnel. But inside the secure conference room, a very different kind of preparation was taking place. Humanity's greatest secret was about to become its greatest weapon, and the galaxy would never be the same. Sarah looked around the room at the faces of people whose lives had just changed forever. In a few hours, she would drop her cover as an awkward student and become what she'd always been, one of Earth's most dangerous weapons. The thought should have been frightening. Instead, she found herself smiling. After years of pretending to be weak, it was going to be very satisfying to show the galaxy what humans could really do. The first sign that something had changed came at 0347 Galactic Standard Time, when the Vorthan Forward Fleet's communications array simply disappeared. One moment, Admiral Thekvor was receiving regular status reports from 17 different battle groups. The next moment, silence. "Status report!" the Vorthon commander barked from his flagship's bridge, his forearms gesturing impatiently at his subordinates. "Unknown, Admiral. The communication relay at Proxima Station is no longer responding. Long-range sensors show no debris field, no signs of battle. It's simply gone." Admiral Thekvor's mandibles clicked with irritation. Proxima Station was a massive facility, larger than most moons. Things that size didn't just disappear. "Send a scout ship to investigate immediately." What Admiral Thekvor didn't know was that Proxima Station hadn't been destroyed. It had been captured by a 12-person Earth Special Operations team that had spent 6 months infiltrating the facility's civilian contractor workforce. In 47 minutes, they had seized control of every critical system without firing a single shot. Similar operations were unfolding across 17 star systems simultaneously. Supply depots vanished, communication networks went dark, and fuel refineries stopped responding to Vorthon commands. Each incident appeared unrelated, like random equipment failures or isolated attacks by desperate local resistance. But at the Galactic Defense Academy, now serving as a coordination center for Terra Protocol operations, Admiral Harrison watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Every red indicator that winked out represented another piece of Vorthon infrastructure that had just become a human asset. "Phase 1 is ahead of schedule," reported Colonel Martinez, Harrison's operations officer. "Our embedded teams have secured 73% of their primary objectives." Sarah stood at the holotable next to Kira, both of them monitoring intelligence feeds from across the galaxy. The past week had transformed Sarah from awkward student to strategic coordinator, and Kira had proven invaluable at predicting how various species would react to the unfolding crisis. "The Corvin High Command is beginning to suspect something," Kira observed, highlighting several encrypted transmissions. "They're starting to notice patterns in the Vorthon communication failures." "Good," Sarah replied. "We want them to notice. The Corvins are natural warriors, and they respect strength. Once they understand what we're really capable of, they'll want to be on our side." Admiral Harrison approached their station. "Agent Chen, what's the status on the Academy situation? Are our new allies adapting well?" Over the past week, their small group had grown. Kira had identified 3 other students whose psychological profiles suggested they could handle the truth about human capabilities. A brilliant Nalaxian engineer named Veltar, a Zentari combat specialist called Drakhun, and, surprisingly, Zektar himself. The proud Corvan had been the most difficult to convince, but when faced with undeniable evidence of human technological superiority, His warrior instincts had overcome his prejudice. If anything, he was now more enthusiastic about human military capabilities than some of the humans themselves. "They're adapting better than expected," Sarah reported. "Zektar has been particularly useful. His knowledge of Vorthon military doctrine has helped us refine our strike patterns. And he's been telling other Corvin students that humans might be worthy opponents after all," Kira added with amusement. "It's quite a change from his previous attitude." The holotable chimed with an incoming transmission. Admiral Kexatara's face appeared, her expression grim. "Admiral Harrison, we have a problem. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They're demanding answers about the mysterious attacks on Vorthon infrastructure." "Let me guess," Admiral Harrison replied. "They want to know if Earth is responsible." "More than that. Several council members are suggesting that if humanity has been hiding military capabilities, we might be planning to conquer the galaxy ourselves once the Vorthons are weakened." Sarah felt her blood turn cold. This was exactly the scenario Earth's planners had feared most, being seen as a threat rather than an ally. "What's the timeline?" Admiral Harrison asked. "The Council convenes in 6 hours. Earth's ambassador has been ordered to provide full disclosure of human military capabilities and intentions." Admiral Harrison closed his eyes for a moment, weighing options. "Very well. Signal Earth Command that we're moving to Phase 2 ahead of schedule." "Sir?" Colonel Martinez looked up from his station. "Phase 2 wasn't supposed to begin for another week. The Council is forcing our hand. If they're going to learn the truth anyway, let's make sure they learn it in a way that benefits us." Sarah understood immediately. "You're going to reveal the full scope of human operations. More than that, we're going to show them exactly what the galaxy looks like from a human strategic perspective." The Galactic Council chambers had seen many historic moments, but none quite like this. Representatives from 43 species filled the massive amphitheater, their attention focused on the human delegation sitting in what had traditionally been considered one of the least important sections. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium, her small human frame dwarfed by the architecture designed for much larger species. But when she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "Honored representatives," she began, "you have called this session to address concerns about recent military activities. I am here to provide the full truth about Earth's involvement in current galactic events." Counselor Vex Thara, a towering Corvin who served as the session's moderator, gestured impatiently. "Ambassador Vasquez, our intelligence services have detected sophisticated attacks on Vorthon infrastructure that could only have been carried out by a highly advanced military force. Yet Earth's official fleet roster shows fewer than 200 vessels. Explain this discrepancy." Ambassador Vasquez smiled, and something in her expression made several council members lean forward with sudden attention. "Counselor Vexithara, Earth's official fleet roster is accurate. We do indeed have fewer than 200 vessels in our publicly acknowledged Space Force." "Then how do you explain—" "However," the ambassador continued, "what we haven't mentioned is that Earth also maintains a deep space command with an additional 12,000 ships, a strategic operations division with assets in every inhabited star system, and a planetary defense network that includes installations you've never heard of in regions you've never explored." The council chamber erupted. 43 species began talking simultaneously, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that overwhelmed the translation systems. Counselor Vexithara banged his ceremonial gavel repeatedly. "Order! Ambassador Vasquez, are you claiming that Earth has been deliberately concealing military assets from the Council?" "For 50 years, yes. That is a violation of every treaty we've signed." "Actually, no." Ambassador Vasquez activated a holographic display that filled the air above the central pit. Article 15 of the Galactic Cooperation Accords requires disclosure of military assets that could threaten other member species. Earth's assessment was that full disclosure would itself constitute a threat to galactic stability. The display showed a tactical overview of known space from a human perspective. Instead of the familiar view of scattered independent systems, it revealed a galaxy where Earth had secret influence or assets in almost every strategic location. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Delreth, the Thessian representative. "The resource requirements, the logistics. How could any single species build such an infrastructure?" "By thinking in longer time scales than anyone else," Ambassador Vasquez replied. While other species focused on habitable worlds and immediate needs, humanity claimed empty systems and played a century-long game. Back at the Defense Academy, Sarah watched the council session with fascination. The revelation was going even better than Earth's planners had hoped. Rather than fear or anger, she was seeing something else in many of the alien representatives: respect. "Look at the Corvin delegation," Kira observed. "They're not upset about being deceived. They're impressed by the scope of the strategy." Sarah nodded. "Corvins respect successful warfare. To them, this isn't deception, it's tactical brilliance." Zektar, who had been granted special permission to observe the session, spoke up from his position nearby. "My people will want to know if humans are willing to share these capabilities with allies." "That's the point of today's revelation," Sarah told him. "We're not trying to dominate the galaxy, we're offering to defend it." On the holo display, Ambassador Vasquez was continuing her presentation. "The Vorthon Empire represents an existential threat to every free species in this galaxy. Their doctrine calls for total conquest and the elimination of what they consider inferior civilizations. Earth's position is that such a threat requires a unified response." Counselor Vex Thara's expression had shifted from anger to calculating interest. "You're proposing a military alliance. We're proposing to do what we've been preparing for half a century: coordinate the defense of free space against an enemy that sees conquest as the only acceptable outcome." The display updated to show real-time positions of both Vorthon and human forces. The enemy fleets were massive, but they were also scattered across dozens of systems. Meanwhile, Earth's forces were positioned to strike at every vulnerable point simultaneously. "The Vorthans believe they're facing scattered, uncoordinated resistance," Ambassador Vasquez explained. "They've planned their campaign around the assumption that each species will defend only their own territory. What they don't know is that for the past 50 years, we've been building a command structure designed specifically to counter their strategic doctrine." Counselor Delreth spoke up. "You're saying you've been planning this war since before it started." "We've been planning for this war since the last one ended. Earth's analysis concluded that Vorthon expansion was inevitable, and that the only way to stop it was through preparation and coordination on an unprecedented scale." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth hadn't just been hiding military assets. They'd been conducting a 50-year intelligence operation that anticipated and planned for the current crisis. "The question," Ambassador Vasquez said, "is whether you want to fight this war as 43 separate species defending individual systems, or as a united galaxy with 50 years of strategic planning behind it." Sarah felt her communicator vibrate with an incoming priority message. The text was brief. "Phase 3 approved. Begin coordinated strikes in T-minus 60 minutes." She looked around the Academy's command center, where humans and aliens were working side by side to coordinate the most complex military operation in galactic history. Dr. Warren was analyzing Vorthon biological weaknesses with Veltar, the Nalaxian engineer. Marcus was planning sabotage operations with Dracoon's tactical expertise. Even Zektar had found a role, serving as a liaison with Corvin military commanders who were beginning to see humans as worthy allies rather than primitive weaklings. "Admiral," Sarah called out to Harrison. "Phase 3 authorization confirmed." The Admiral nodded grimly. "Signal all units. It's time to show the galaxy what coordinated human military doctrine looks like." Across the galaxy, the war changed in a single hour. Vorthon fleet commanders, who had been confidently advancing on what they believed were lightly defended systems, suddenly found themselves facing coordinated attacks from directions they hadn't known were possible. Supply convoys that had been traveling safely for weeks ran into perfectly positioned ambush forces. Communication networks that had functioned flawlessly for decades began routing Vorthon orders to human intelligence centers. Most importantly, the scattered resistance that had been harassing Vorthon advance forces suddenly began fighting with unprecedented coordination and tactical sophistication. Admiral Tekvor stood on his flagship's bridge, watching his carefully planned invasion turn into chaos. In the past hour, he'd lost contact with 7 different battle groups, 3 major supply bases, and his primary communication hub. The enemy seemed to know exactly where his forces would be and what they would do before he did. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's coming from the Galactic Council chambers." "Put it through." The main display activated, showing a human female standing at what appeared to be a galactic political assembly. "I am Admiral Rebecca Foster of Earth Deep Space Command," the image said. "I am addressing all Vorthan forces currently engaged in aggressive action against peaceful galactic civilizations." Admiral Tekvor's mandibles clicked with confusion. Earth Deep Space Command? He'd never heard of such an organization. "As of this moment," Admiral Foster continued, "your invasion has been terminated. Your supply lines have been severed, your communication networks have been compromised, and your tactical doctrine has been completely anticipated and countered." The display split to show tactical readouts from across the galaxy. Every Vorthon position was being simultaneously attacked by forces that shouldn't have existed. "You have 2 options," Admiral Foster said. "Withdraw to your home systems immediately, or discover just how thoroughly humanity has been preparing for this conflict." Admiral Tekvor turned to his tactical officer. "How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated that humans possessed minimal military capabilities." "Unknown, Admiral. Our entire strategic assessment appears to have been incorrect." On the display, Admiral Foster was still speaking. "For the Vorthon Empire, this is your only warning. For the rest of the galaxy, welcome to Phase 3 of Terra Protocol." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Tekvor staring at tactical displays that showed his invasion force being systematically dismantled by an enemy that had somehow become exponentially more dangerous overnight. Back at the Defense Academy, Sarah watched the strategic overview with satisfaction. Red indicators representing Vorthon forces were winking out across the galaxy as human strike teams completed their objectives. But more importantly, new blue indicators were appearing as other species began coordinating their own defense efforts with Earth's command structure. "It's working," Kira said with amazement. "The Thessian Defense Fleet just requested tactical coordination with human forces. So did the Corvin High Command." Admiral Harrison smiled. "Once you demonstrate competence, everyone wants to be on your team." Sarah's communicator chimed with a personal message from Admiral Foster, who was handling the public face of Earth's revelation while Harrison managed the Academy operation. "Agent Chen," the message read, "request you return to Earth for debrief and reassignment. Your mission at the Academy is complete, but we have new roles that require your specific expertise. Also, please bring your Thessian friend if she's interested in joining Earth Intelligence Division." Sarah showed the message to Kira, who read it with growing excitement. "They want me to join Earth Intelligence?" "Apparently. Are you interested?" Kira looked around the command center, where humans and aliens were working together to coordinate the defense of galactic civilization. 6 months ago, I thought humans were a primitive species barely capable of spaceflight. Now you're asking me to help run the most sophisticated intelligence operation in the galaxy. So is that a yes? That's definitely a yes. As alarms began sounding to signal the Academy's transition from Coordination Center to Forward Command Post, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. A week ago, she'd been an awkward outsider trying to fit in at an alien military academy. Now she was a key coordinator in humanity's emergence as a galactic military power. But perhaps most importantly, she was no longer alone. The careful barriers between species that had defined galactic politics for centuries were beginning to break down, replaced by something new, a true alliance based on mutual respect and shared goals. "Agent Chen," Admiral Harrison called from his command station. "Ready for extraction?" Sarah looked around the academy one last time. In the cafeteria where Zektar had mocked human weakness, alien and human officers were now planning joint operations. In the classrooms where her professors had dismissed human tactical doctrine, Earth's strategies were being studied and implemented by some of the galaxy's finest military minds. "Ready, sir," she replied. As the transport ship lifted off from the Academy's landing pad, Sarah watched through the viewport as the campus grew smaller below. Somewhere down there, the awkward human student named Sarah Chen had ceased to exist. In her place was Special Agent Chen of Earth Intelligence Division, one of the architects of humanity's most successful covert operation. But she knew the real victory wasn't humanity's emergence as a galactic power. It was the proof that different species could work together when faced with a common threat. The galaxy would never again see humans as weak outsiders, but more importantly, humans would never again have to pretend to be something they weren't. The war with the Vorthons would continue for several more months, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. A galaxy that fought as one was far more powerful than any single empire, no matter how large. And in the end, that might be humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization. Not just military strength, but the demonstration that diversity and unity could coexist. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Sarah smiled. She was finally going home, not as a failed student, but as a hero who had helped save the galaxy by being exactly who she'd always been. The rumor of human power had become reality, and the galaxy was better for it.